Hey, it's Jeff. Welcome back. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do, look at all the squares controlled by all the pieces and pawns for both sides. And as a result, you should see, if you were looking for queen g7, you would notice that the bishop on f8 is guarding f7, or guarding g7. But this bishop on a2 is hanging. So we can just take this rook takes a2 and be up a piece. And after that, we do have to be careful because white's pawns are in front of the king. So if there was a rook here, for instance, well, no, a rook here on c8, they would be able to back rank mate us. The reason rook d8 wouldn't be a problem is because the queen is guarding this. But you do have to check for that. And here, the queen is not able to back rank mate us from a8 with the pawn blocking on a7. Okay, so let me see the typical mistakes and bring up the analysis board really quickly. So this was just a hanging piece. The bishop on a2 didn't have any other defenders. So yeah, queen g7 was the most common mistake. And bishop takes g7 was the next most common mistake. So yeah, either of these moves, they don't really do enough because the bishop on f8 is a good defensive piece there. And then queen c8 was played a little bit after the first two moves. There weren't many people playing the other wrong moves, but this just hangs the queen. Okay, so let's try another one. And okay, so what's going on here? It looks like, well, at first I was looking at knight takes c4 because we have more attackers on the c4 pawn than they have defenders, but their queen is also hanging. So when you do this initial scan, seeing what pieces can go to where, like you want to look at like all the knight moves. So like see exactly where it can go, where it's blocked, and you see that, oh, they got a queen right there, right in the path. So you want to calculate, is it safe to take that? And here it certainly is, so we can just take the queen. Okay, so analysis board, mistakes. Knight f3 check. Knight f3 check. I think the pawn can just take. But it's kind of just giving up material, and you are opening up white's king, but there's a much better option of just winning more material on the spot. Like, you don't have enough pieces around their king to go for a kingside attack right now. So that's one reason that you should probably discourage stuff like that for now. Especially when the alternative is just to win a queen. And queen takes c4, and knight takes c4 were other mistakes. So yeah, queen takes c4 clearly gives up the queen because of the bishop on b3. But knight takes c4 seems to win a pawn at most. So what's going on here? Knight takes d6, hitting this. And with that, and actually this starts to look pretty risky because if you take here, you can't go here because of the knight, and they're threatening back rank. So you run into some problems when you go for that pawn too. Some back rank issues, which we learned from one of the previous problems that, yeah, when you go for something like that, you do want to check, especially since, again, black has these pawns, can't move the king, and this rook has actually been moved, and that's a big part. Maybe if the rook was here, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Yeah, because then, I don't know, maybe not. But the point of that was just a hanging queen overall. So anything else that you would consider is kind of, like, once you see it, you know that you should have played that instead of any other idea you were considering. And this one, our rook on e2 is attacked by the knight. So we already know maybe we want to move this out the way or do something else. And the rook on a2 is undefended, so we can just take this rook. They do have like knight h3 check after and stuff, but we've won a rook, so it doesn't matter if they get a pawn or two. Plus, this a pawn is passed, and it can eventually become a queen. Like you can put the bishop on c6 at some point to guard that square and just push this pawn up. And if you needed, we can bring the rook here or here. Like this is just completely winning for white. Let's see analysis board. So bishop e8 was the most common mistake. And this is a move I don't understand. It was played 137 times. Maybe it's because, well, one, they're pretty sure they didn't see the rook here, or that this was attacking this. But maybe they wanted to do something with the bishop, or like, this bishop can't attack anything except this e7 pawn. So maybe that's the logic between there. And maybe they did a tactic where the answer was to do something with the bishop recently. Maybe that's it. But it's weird, because it does just give up the bishop. And also they can give this check first and then take the bishop, which would probably be better. But this is a move that I don't really understand why people make. But it's been played so many times that there must be some reason. So I'd be curious in the comments if you're if you happen to make this mistake. Let me know, what was your thought process. But I think it might have been just, this is the only piece you can attack with this bishop. That's going to be my guess. And rook e3 on move 1. Rook e3, so it makes much more sense than bishop e8 in that, okay, they saw it was attacked and they moved it out the way. The problem is that doesn't really win any material or checkmate, pretty much. It's kind of like a defensive move. And in a lot of situations, it would be a perfectly decent defensive move, but in this situation, there was a better option. You could move out the way and pick up a rook. Now you allow stuff like this check and so on. So, and it's actually still just this check picks up the pawn. And then e5 was the next mistake. e5, so just pushing ahead. Another type of positional move that would be pretty decent, like a good pawn break to go for, to try to weaken the structure a bit. Like if black takes, now they've got an isolated pawn and a double pawn here. Well, you could probably just retake this at some point, and then you'd be hitting this pawn. This pawn is still weak, but for tactical puzzles, you're definitely looking for something more concrete that'll win more material or checkmate. Alright, so what's going on here? After looking at all the squares we can move to, I see 2 hanging bishops. And the question is, which order do you take them? And the answer is, you want to take the f8 bishop first because it's with check, and then they have to move the king, and then you can pick up the other one. Okay, so let's go to analysis board. Top mistake is rook takes a8, so yeah. So you wanted to, like I said, take this with check and then take that one. If you take this first, they can go king g7, and now you can't take this one without giving a material. And if you count up the material, you'll see that's even now. So black gets away with a draw. And let's see. So 2 rook takes f7. Okay, so some people here did not take the free bishop, but took a pawn, but it's guarded by the king. So you want to do the blunder check after you make your move. Do they have any good? checks, captures, and threats. And they can just take your rook, and then you count up the material, and you're losing. Let's see, what was the next one? Rook g8, check on move 2. So they went for this check. Maybe they're thinking the king is going to move, no, not here, but the king is going to move somewhere and then take this, or they're trying to checkmate somehow, because a lot of the tactics at this level is just one check and it's checkmate. But there's a reason that certain checks are checkmate and other checks aren't checkmate. So there's one-to-ones where they could just recapture. So whenever you want to check and you think it's checkmate, you have to see, before you do that, all their legal moves and to verify that they actually don't have anywhere to go. Okay. Let's go to another one. Here, looks like we can play our own back rank checkmate. So again, these 3 pawns here indicates back rank mate could be possible, and is possible because the drawback of their opponent's move, they left the back rank. And this bishop isn't developed, so this rook isn't helping out defend the back rank. So that's a reason you want to develop. And you can notice black has much better development. Their rooks are connected, and their pieces are off their original square, so that's why we got back rank here. Okay. Let's see, there's 41 different mistakes here. Knight f4 played 277 times. Knight f4, attacking the queen. Problem is, I guess bishop could take. Yeah, bishop can take, and you take back. You're not gonna be threatening this at all, even if it was black to move again. So yes, that doesn't work, and you count the material and it's about even. And queen c3 on move 1. Wait, was it queen c3? Queen takes c3. Oh. Yeah, so this one just hangs the queen. And the thing is, if b takes c3, you do still have this checkmating pattern. But the problem is, after queen takes, now they have 2 pieces that can defend on e1. So you go here, they bring the rook back, and now notice rook takes, queen takes, and white's winning. So if you saw queen takes c3, knowing that after queen takes you're checkmating, that's still pretty decent that you were able to calculate far ahead to pull off that combination. The problem is, after this, that you can see that it would end up checkmating, but the problem is they could take back with the queen and defend, and also you could have just did that idea in the first move. Okay, and rook d4 on move 1. Rook d4 hangs the rook, I believe. So c takes d4. Maybe you were hoping for them to capture with the rook, but even here, it's an even position. If they take with the pawn, then white's winning. Okay. Try another one. All right, here, the thing to notice is the white king and queen are on the same file, or on the same rank, and our rooks are on the same E file. And so if we go here, we have a double attack, and if they move it, so if they take, we take the queen, but if they were to move their king, we could just take the queen like that. So let's go to analysis board. And what were the mistakes? Okay, rook e2 on move 1. Maybe a mouse slip, maybe going for e1, but just missed it. The knight can take, and there's nothing else going on. So you're just down material. The only other capture you could do would be just giving them an easier win. So let's see, what else did we do? Rook f5 on move 1. Rook f5, this attacks the queen, but the problem again is, okay, the knight could take here, or the queen could take probably. So yeah, either of those would just be winning. Other moves also win the position, but just taking the rook with either of these pieces would be okay for white. And rook e4, move 1. Rook e4 attacks the knight, but the knight can just move away. But the question is, okay, knight moves here. Now we're still winning again. So the question is, how does the knight move and guard against the threat of rook e1? Or does it even have to move? So the answer is, if you had to move the knight, you would move it to this square so that it's guarding here. So now when you go here, you could take with the knight, and now white's winning. But you could also just get the queen off of this type of dangerous square, do something like this, and now white's okay. They're going to eventually convert this into a win. So there are two ways for white to defend. They could just move the knight, defend the square, or just move the queen off of this risky rank for that, where they can fall into this double attack. All right, let's try another one. And what's going on here? If you count the material, they're pretty much even, at least for the rooks and minor pieces. So if we just take this rook, we're just up in exchange. So let's take that. And they took back. So now we have a rook for their knight. Okay. So now this is board. And rook d6 was played 265 times. So in this situation, rook d6. This one, I don't know, it is like improving the rook into a different position, putting maybe some pressure here, although it doesn't really seem to do much because the pawn could just retake if you were to capture the knight. So really, between this and seeing that this is also a legal move, you should really just go for the more material, like just winning material on the spot. And rook d7 on move 1. So this one just hangs the rook. And so they could take here, or they could take here. Taking with the rook would probably be better, since they would retain more material in the end, as opposed to this. Although even this is still easily winning for black. And then rook e1 on move 1. Rook e1, they can take your rook with check. You have to move out the way, and so yeah, they're just going to win that. So you don't have time to take that rook. And even if you were able to, you might end up still in giving them at least a draw or something. Okay.